I'm excited.
Hi, everyone. I'm super excited today to introduce you to my new guest. Her name is Patricia Lohan, and she's a Feng Shui expert, speaker, and author. And I'm really excited because, I'm Chinese. I know a little bit about Feng Shui, but not really understand it too much. And when I came across your website, when you talk about archetypes and energy, I just think we are on the same page. And I just couldn't wait to interview you. So first of all, welcome to my show.
Thank you so much. I'm delighted to be here.
Yeah. So a little introduction. So
Mm-hmm.
Patricia is the creator of PowerHouse Feng Shui, the author of The Happy Home, a guide to creating a happy, healthy, wealthy life. She helps entrepreneurs make their home and business magnetic to money, luck, and blessings. So she has helped thousands of people across the globe embracing Feng Shui and create lasting changes in their business, home, and lives. So obviously you have been featured in many medias around the world, like all the big names, New York Times, CNN, Forbes, and so forth. So definitely have been around, definitely have done a lot of interviews. So I'm super excited to interview you today and perhaps asking questions that hopefully it's new to my audience and enjoy a time together.
Yes, for sure. Well, I'm delighted to be here.
Great. So I always ask this question because, especially when I first meet someone that I don't know a lot about, I always love to hear the background story. Like what drive you to study Feng Shui and make it an important part of your life?
Yeah, well, I think this short synopsis is this is definitely a soul's calling for me because it is. I'm from the west coast of Ireland. I got my first books about feng shui when I was 15. I made my parents hire a feng shui consultant to actually feng shui their business. Like I was just hooked. I just knew there was something deeper to this work. And we had moved house a lot of times. And I think that maybe part of that was like noticing. Like I'm a very empathetic person and I feel energy very easily. So I think I was really impacted by the moves to all these different houses and different environments growing up. And then later into my 20s, I quit everything and I headed to yoga and headed to India and became a yoga teacher. And during that journey, I really just opened up more to the spiritual, energetic side of things and realizing all about mindset and energy and, working on ourselves, releasing our trauma, getting real clear in our visions. And what I noticed was when I moved into a new house in a new city, I decided I'm going to do this feng shui because, I'm doing all this stuff for myself, but what about my home? So I remembered those books and I feng shuied my place to call in love. And that's how, people started asking me, how did I meet my husband? Because I actually feng shuied my place and I met my husband very soon afterwards and he had feng shuied it. So it's like this whole cosmic, how things align, and this was all lining up. My desires, my intentions, my home were all supporting me calling in my husband. And then we both trained and decided to dive into feng shui just out of personal interest. So, it's this calling underneath of like, I didn't wake up one morning and be like, I'm going to be a train and be feng shui expert. Actually, this unfolded so cosmically and amazingly and very organically. When we implemented feng shui in our own house, we had a 6-figure windfall out of nowhere, really unexpected. Lots of amazing things started to change, and everyone was like, "What have you just done?" Like my clients, my friends, "What did you just do?" And I'm like, "Well, it's the feng shui," and that's really where it was a tipping point for me. And people just wanted more information, so that's how we started on the feng shui journey, and it's been an absolute just such an amazing game changer for people in my own life, but also people in their lives, realizing that there's a resource that we all have, a roof over our heads that we're blessed to have, that's untapped often, and then we can turn it on and really access an energy that can support us calling in our dreams.
Whoa, so many sub questions within that. But one of the thing I want to refer to is early on when you explaining your experience or your journey, you talk about you were growing up and moving homes a lot, and therefore you sense the energy a lot. And I think it is so interesting where it's almost a divine plan that you just have to grow up in that circumstance so that you have this unique experience to experience a lot of different homes, a lot of different energy. So when it comes to feng shui, and then you realize, you put the two together, you realize, oh, I need to do something about it. It's so interesting, like, for someone maybe just living in the same home all their life would not have the same background and therefore trigger. So that's the first part. I found it so interesting, and clearly it's part of the divine plan that you gotta meet a husband that also interested in feng shui. It's kind of all joined up together to that point, because you were following the lead, you were following your intuition or curiosity or just the flow. So the next thing I want to dive into is that you tend to use the feng shui like a verb, like let's feng shui it. So for people like me have no idea, can you unpack it a little bit? Like, what is feng shui it means?
Okay, brilliant. So I love this. So one of the things that how I love to describe feng shui is that it's acupuncture for your home. So when we, so it's a different perspective to what a lot of people would have thought feng shui is about, that it's like, oh, you put your couch here and you do this on this auspicious date and you don't do this thing and you don't do, there was a lot of these very stringent rules and practices that some of them, for me, we don't like, for example, some people may think, oh, you need to have your lucky frog here and you need to have this here. And like, we don't practice that in why don't
like
we
the bamboo and the funny mirrors.
Exactly. For me, I'm like, there's no funny mirrors and there's no frogs. But if you want a frog and you want a not lucky mirror, like, get it. Like, if it makes you feel like it's going to support you, get it. So that's my philosophy. But when I explain feng shui, I explain it as basically harmonizing the 5 elements through acupuncture for your home. So we're working with the 5 elements to balance and neutralize your home. Now, the one thing about feng shui is that it is actually, every house is totally unique. So there's many different schools of feng shui, and when it was brought from the east to the west, it got kind of watered down, and there's some philosophies that I don't adhere to, and schools that kind of like would be contradictory, and that's where there's a lot of complex and contradictory information out there. And for me, I'm just here to say, we would never like, I've confirmed this with acupuncturists, like, you could have 2 people come with the same complaints, like the same issues, and they would treat them differently depending on their age, depending on their size, depending on where they were born, or their physique. It's the same thing with a house. Every house is totally unique, and it has a specific date of birth. And before we started recording, we talked about astrology. And I truly believe that that's one of the aspects with feng shui, is that when it was first created, like 5,000 years ago, we didn't have like compasses. It was very much about looking at putting a home and placing your home in the most auspicious place, that you were going to get the sun in the right place, that it was going to be supportive for health, for wealth. Where was the land going to give this sense of support? And what we kind of do now with feng shui is we kind of work retrospectively with houses, because most people live in their house, and we want to retrospectively create this space of balance and harmony. And when you spend time in nature, if you're out in by the beach and you're feeling so alive and so balanced and so happy, that's what we want you to feel in your house. And when you feel balanced and happy, when your house feels balanced and happy, you feel it. It's this it's a synergistic relationship.
Okay, so follow-up question here. I feel that some people will have story where they move into a house and probably feng shui there was great, or in matching their energy, I don't know, but they have a really good like years and spend a really great time there. Some people move in the house and everything just went bad. And I often feel it's like you choose the house also choose you. You have to harmonize this energy piece, or if in the case that you have to live in this house, let's just say whatever reason, then you could do something internally to maybe improve it, which I'm sure you help a lot of clients. So can you tell us a little bit of do's and don'ts, a really basic principle for like newcomer like me, just to learn a quick tip or two?
Yeah, for sure. I just want to say, just on what you talked about with people attracting the houses that they're meant to have, and things get better, and that I do believe that there's a part of a belief structure of like energetically you're aligned to calling in and be ready for this more expansion. But if you have any limiting beliefs or any blocks or any that, you end up at a house that matches that. But what happens is people may be watching it, but they raise their own energy. So they do the mindset work, they do healing. The house stays the same, and it creates this kind of tricky place. And this is where people will come to me and be like, hey, hang on a minute, like since I moved in, everything started falling apart. Or here, hang on a minute, like what can we do to I'm feeling this stuckness hit at some plateau. And that's what we're doing with the feng shui, is getting it into the balance to raise that energy up so you're supported on all levels. So yeah, we can totally do that. Just on, sorry, I digress from your question, but your question is some things, do's and don'ts. Like the very first thing for me when it comes to your home is like feng shui is there's so much information. It's like an iceberg, and at the very tip of the iceberg is what's on the visible plane. In the practice that I work with, we're working with the invisible energy below the surface, but above the surface there are some really great things that you can do to really start to acknowledge the energy that your house has. And the first one is just appreciation, like literally appreciation for the environment that you have. The fact that we have a roof over our heads, it can be just this thing that we just take for granted, that we have this beautiful space that looks after us and supports us. That's the first thing. The second thing I talk about doing is then looking with fresh eyes. Now, fresh eyes is like pretending you're a new person, like pretending you're totally, it's the very first time that you have arrived at your house. So when you're at the driveway, you're driving in or you're walking in, I want you to just observe everything. How does it make you feel? Do you get excited? Does your energy drop? Does something kind of annoy you or bug you? Because that is what's happening to you every single day. So it's like kind of heightening your senses, like opening your eyes, looking, hearing, feeling as you move in through your house and start at the front door. I do lots of free trainings where I talk about the front door being the mouth of your house. It's where the energy comes in. But if you're walking up to your front door and it feels like heavy, you feel like unhappy, something is broken, the plants are dead, the welcome mat is fading away, like all of that is just going to deplete your energy. So we want to really first, and also repel that energy from coming in, because it won't feel like it wants to come in, So what you want to do is just want to like activate all of those senses, like activate each sense and start to tune in around your environment and look at, the paintings on the walls, the things that are working, the things that are broken, the things that are chipped, and being like, is this like helping or hurting me? Is this bringing me closer to what I want to call in my life or not? And honestly, you will reimagine your house and you will connect with things in a very different way.
Well, so great to hear that what you just said, because it sparks so many like things that I already know in the past, but you're sort of joining the dots. Like, how in coaching we talk a lot about decluttering, whether it's tidy up the room or get rid of the papers and books. It feels like the same philosophy, because you want to feel expansion, you want to feel free, right? So if you have all the books and junk around you, clearly that's not going to be expensive.
No, exactly.
It makes perfect sense that, it's a different school of thought, but coming at it at the same angle and doing the same action. So I have two, actually three. So two little questions, perhaps a bit strange, but okay. So we just moved into this house not long ago. It's really spacious. Everything is great. I appreciate it. Just like you said, exactly what you said. I love the way we're getting up to the front door. Now that this little spider tend to create nest right in front. Not that I mind too much, but just occasionally, it's like I felt it. That's so interesting. Like I don't mind it so much. For some people, they may just scream, but because there's some bushes on the side, so they do kind of create some nest. Is it bad? Like even though I don't mind, like my friends there, little friends.
You know what? For me, when it comes to like animals and pets and, you know, spiders
Nature
and different
stuff.
things and nature stuff, I'm a really big fan of like looking at the symbolism of it. You know, from Feng Shui, like it always reverts back to the different animals and the symbols of them. So for me, the spiders, like it's really, you know, the symbolic of like weaving your own path, like, you know, being the weaver. Like you see how they create these intricate things and they don't know where they're going to start and how powerful it is, and it being a reminder of being a dream weaver. And I would imagine that if you start acknowledging that and you start seeing it, you may not they may move, they may just move, like, or like for me it's like the we see it with them, with our clients, like they may have artwork up on their in their walls that are symbolic of something, and then once they kind of get the message, they're like, oh, okay, you know. So you know, so that's what I would say. Like it's not bad most of the time with nature. I'm not a you know, it's not going to be negative feng shui.
Okay, cool.
And actually it's like go with the animal totems and be like, oh my god, what's that, you know.
Cool. For me, it's actually about creativity, because they are really amazing in terms of how they create a web. So another minor question that I get, you know, you mentioned like, you know, you go to a house, you want to see light, or, you know, where it's facing, it could, you know, you want the flow, right? I assume, like natural stuff. Okay. For me, in my study, I actually have a creepy habit that I like to be very dark, like it's like a cave. And I write in the cave with my computer and a little lamp. My husband, when he sees me, he would just open the curtain and turn on all the lights. Like, what's wrong with you? Like, but for me, that's my creative cave. But I assume for a house, lights and sunshine, it's supposedly good, right? So
it actually depends. Yeah.
Okay.
So this is great because like you going into this dark cave is very yin. Like it's a yin time is very introverted. It's the darkness, and every house has like a yin side and a yang side. And the yang side is like where everyone lives. It's the kind of like the kitchen, the living room, the expanded space, which you would ideally want that to be bright. You would like, and if it's not to people, it's just like get brighter light bulbs, like, you know, bring in brighter clothes, take the darker furniture out or repaint it, you know, to bring it more yang. But like for bedrooms, we want bedrooms to be more yin. We would prefer, like typically when I'd be, say if I'm working with a house from scratch, I would be looking at positioning houses or a bedroom in the yin part, which is quieter and a little bit darker and a little bit more subdued. So it's about like with feng shui, what we're doing is we want to balance this yin and yang energy. So like for me, I love like darkness for me to do like, you know, introverted internal work. Like I don't want to be in a big bright room when I'm trying to kind of dive in. And we just think about like meditation, it's about quietness and introversion. So yeah.
Perfect. I'm so happy because now I can tell my husband to leave me alone, right? Because I'm the same with the living space, the kids space and the kitchen. He always complains I turn on too much light. So now really explains it all. So like my third question, following up for what you said, was, you know, you described feng shui or what you do. It's a bit of like an iceberg where you talk about the physical thing on the top, but then you also work a lot underneath. So can you tell us a little bit what that is?
Yeah, sure. Sorry, my little puppy is having a little conniption here. So what is that? So essentially when we do the feng shui, as I said, every house is totally unique. So when people come into my world, we will get them to send us information about their house. So the year it's built, the date of birth, literally like an astrology reading. And what that actually, then we create a personal report. So a lot of people may have heard like, oh, there's a prosperity area and it's over in the back left corner, and I actually don't know what that school of thought, that school is. It's not that I don't know what it is, but I'm not sure of actually the direction or where they say it is in regards to the front door. But for me, we're like, every house is unique. So we create a personal report for all of our clients. And when we do that, what we're looking at is all the different energies in every part of your home. So every part of your home represents a different part of your life. And in each part, so for example, your health area, which is right in the center of your home, we'll be looking and saying, well, what are the energies flowing in this area? Like, you know, it'd be just like the acupuncturist taking the pulse to see like what's going on in all of these different meridians. That's what we're looking at. And if they're positive, like if they're good, we're like, oh, what can we bring in here to improve it? So it's exactly like the 5 elements. So like, oh, we may add a plant, or we may add some fire element, or we may add some earth element to make it better. There can be some areas of the home that can be very difficult, some areas that the energy can be really blocked and stuck. And when we talk about the area being blocked or stuck, so for example, it could be the west area of your home, or like the east area is your family area. Now, if the energy is not happy in the east area, it will then equal back into your house where the kids are fighting, where people are not getting on that well, where it's kind of this bickering that you may not, and it goes through cycles. So some years it could be all fine, and another year it could be like really tricky. So our ultimate goal with Feng Shui is to implement and place the right balancing, harmonizing element into every area. So then when we have these elements in the right place, it creates this sense of flow. So communication flows, more money flows in, you kind of get more in tune with your intuition and your guidance, and your family are happier. So that's what we're really working with. We're working with that below the surface as opposed to the top. But the top of the surface, the top of the, what we visibly see when we walk into someone's house is definitely going to be having an impact. I talked about artwork recently, or just there a minute ago, like earlier, about like having a piece of art. I've had clients that I've gone into their bedroom, single women, and they have like a picture with a couple and one person in the back, like these kind of like more abstracty. And in all the relationships this woman had, was in any relationship she'd had up until then, there was always another person. Like, so it was like an ex-wife or an ex-girlfriend that was interacting and so it's like sometimes it's like it's a dance between like the visible and the seen and the unseen. So it is really, and that's where there can be a lot of misconceptions about Feng Shui, where we think it's just the seen. It's just like, oh, my house is interior designed. Like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, oh man, I've seen some interior design houses that are magnificent, but the people's lives are falling apart. Like, which did you want? Like, do you want it to be in a family where everything's having a drama, or or do you want to be in a house where everything's flowing? It may not be the perfect house or aesthetically as beautiful, and you can have both. You can have both. But yeah, it's this the misconceptions can be around it having to be perfect.
This is so interesting that I can hear there's so much depth in what you do, because it's literally like an iceberg, because the tip of the iceberg is what we see, and often is not even 1/3 of the size, or 1/10 the size of the whole. So that's super interesting. Now, another thing I noticed from your website, you talk about archetype, like the energy of the house is the foundation of everything in life. Sometimes pulling, sometimes pushing. Can you talk a little bit about archetypes? It seems like it gives a label, indication of something quite tangible for our listeners.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So like if we, when we talk about archetypes in astrology, we have like eight different, and it's based on when you're born. Exactly the same concept with Feng Shui. Every house has its own personality type, and there's 4 personality types. So I have a quiz on my website. It's patricialohan.com/quiz, and that will give you an idea. If you kind of just go in and you can do the quiz, and it'll give you an idea of the different archetypes. So just like we talked about under the surface, underneath the water, with the iceberg, this can be a really defining factor of like what's going on in your life. So you talked about, some people could move into the house and everything can fall apart. Like, this is a line that I hear from a lot of my clients, or, things just, we moved in and myself and my husband are fighting all the time, or we get on better when we're not in our house, like, so it's like, so when you do the quiz, it gives you an idea of the key indicators. And this is what I have observed working with clients. There's 4 main house types. They can be either supportive for money or not for money, or they can be supportive for people or not for people. So when we're talking about, and actually ultimately Feng Shui translates to good health and good harvest. And some houses can be good for both. Others can be bad for both. Others can be good for one and not the other. And when you see that, honestly, it starts to make sense for people. People start to go, oh, and actually there's a part that you can kind of get a relief that you're like, it's not me. Like, I don't need to work any harder. I don't need to. What I actually need to do is rebalance my home and bring that into harmony. When that comes into harmony, then I have to line up my beliefs and my vision and my intentions and take action from that point. So it's like life coaching and coaching all of that work is that real like internal, but what we have to look at is what are the external factors that are impacting us, and that's where the archetypes come in. And when we do our reports for our clients, we'll tell them, well, this is what your house type is, and we'll also teach them how to balance it. So this isn't it's not a permanent thing. Like, it's not labeled like that forever. Once we balance it, and once it's balanced, I'm like, no, your house is good for money and people. Like, it's going to be like that. Now we have to switch the mindset of like, yeah, we can create this environment that supports me for this.
I really like it because I do believe the fact that it's like a growth mindset. It's not that this house is bad for this, good for that, and that's it.
Yeah.
You can do a lot of things to elevate the energy, or the things that you can do on yourself that could help. So I really like that growth mindset piece. So you talked about the bedroom a little bit in relationship with some houses good for people, maybe not for money. I think a lot of people mostly interested in like the relationship or the money thing. And I often see the bedroom is very related to the relationship. And, there are some no-brainers. I don't put horrible, scary, or heartbroken pictures, that sort of thing. But money, on the other hand, I find it very intangible. Like, what will be like the no-brainer that it is really silly to do? Like, I would say, the picture story, definitely. I wouldn't like to put like a heartbreaking label there. But what about money? Like, what kind of things that we should be aware of and sort of try to avoid?
Yeah, so that's a great, and actually one of the things, especially you're totally spot on with the bedrooms. And when it comes to bedrooms, just in terms like, the area may not be the love and marriage area in your bedroom, may not be that, but your bedroom is still to be a sanctuary, like, for sure, a sanctuary for rest, romance, and relaxation. And what you kind of focus on what the intention of the room is, along with the actual feng shui aspect. So when it comes to money, this is the one that a lot of my clients will come to me about, especially if they've discovered their house is bad for money and they're like, help. And I'm like, okay, so when we work with the energy of the money, one of some little no-brainers are, we talked about chi and the energy coming into your house, and I talked about the front door being the mouth of your house. So that is actually one of the most important spaces to look at, to make sure the door opens easily, and I may be like, what? Because that's where the money comes in. So chi is the same as money and relationships and fun and good and clients and opportunities. It's all energy. So when we're calling in, we want to make sure it can get in, that it can find you. So like, even just the simple things of like making sure the doorbell's working, making sure, like, if the postman can't find you, how can you make it easier to get that energy to you? Like, the chi's not finding you either. So bringing it in, making sure the door is easy to open. When it does come in, you want it to free flow. So that's back to that fresh eyes perspective. And I touched on it briefly, but looking at things that are broken or not working, they are depleting the energy, and they're going to deplete your finances as well. And that goes specifically to taps. So water element is very connected to prosperity. So you want to make sure that you don't have any leaking taps or sinks or showers that drip, 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 drip. That is literally money dripping away. The element is being washed away. And like, literally, and then the other part of that is then when the energy comes in, we want to make sure the toilet seat down and the toilet door closed. The reason for that is that there's a lot of water element in the bathroom. So we don't want the water element to escape out of the bathroom. We don't want to flush down the toilet. So keeping the door closed and the toilet seat down is also really beneficial.
That's so awesome. So I think in a short time we spoke together, I already learned so much from you in terms of what feng shui is about and some sort of these tips and do's and don'ts. And I absolutely love it. And I think people would definitely get a really quick sort of understanding and invitation to go deeper. So my next question is, how can people find you online? And, I know you offer this quiz, so maybe that's something that that can
Yeah,
help
sure.
people?
So there's a few opportunities. So I think that like the easiest thing to do is if you write down patricialohan.com/, and wherever you are looking for support. So if you want to do the quiz, you can go to patricialohan.com/quiz, easy. Or if you want to call in love, patricialohan.com/love. I have a beautiful guide on how to call in more love. And then money, it's same, patricialohan.com/money. So quiz, money, or love, they're all there. And then just there are resources to get you started. So for example, if you do want to, and the love guide is not just for calling in love, it's for harmonizing and improving your relationship. There may be some things that you can tweak around your environment to, improve your relationship.
Great. Thank you so much. And I really appreciate the time we have together. And there's so much good tips. And then I cannot wait to do your quiz actually right after this call.
Well, let me know what you got. And like, if anyone does the quiz, come and let me know, or, follow me on Instagram. I'd love to know when people are doing the quiz, because like, honestly, it's just a game changer when you realize that your house is like being, sabotaging some of the success that you have been working really hard for.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.